Come in, rest your head against the pillow. I know that mind of yours, still turning, still solving, still rehearsing the day even now, tired but unable to stop. There is no blame in that, none at all. You do not have to fall asleep, you only have to stay with me. Let that responsibility slip from your shoulders. I am here and I will not leave you. We will walk through this old story slowly, at your pace, side by side, until the world grows quiet around us. Just stay with me a little while. Now let your body settle deep into the bed and take a long, slow breath. Release it fully and know that you are safe here. Let me guide you now into a story that is gentle and quiet, like a distant lullaby carried on a warm evening breeze. That evening, as Marilla led Anne up the narrow stairway to the little east gable room, the house had settled into that deep, quiet hour when the last light of day lingers on the walls like a soft golden breath. Marilla's voice was firm, but not unkind, as she spoke about the clothes scattered on the floor the night before. "Now, Anne," she said, "I noticed last night that you threw your clothes all about the floor when you took them off. That is a very untidy habit, and I can't allow it at all. As soon as you take off any article of clothing, fold it neatly and place it on the chair. I haven't any use at all for little girls who aren't neat." Anne's eyes were already half lost in some distant dream, but she came back to the room with a little sigh. "I was so harrowed up in my mind last night that I didn't think about my clothes at all," she said. "I'll fold them nicely tonight. They always made us do that at the asylum. Half the time, though, I'd forget. I'd be in such a hurry to get into bed nice and quiet and imagine things." "You'll have to remember a little better if you stay here," said Marilla, watching as Anne folded her dress and laid it carefully across the chair. "There, that looks something like. Say your prayers now and get into bed." Anne looked up with those wide gray eyes, and her voice was perfectly calm. "I never say any prayers." Marilla stood very still for a moment, a quiet horror spreading through her. "Why, Anne, what do you mean? Were you never taught to say your prayers? God always wants little girls to say their prayers. Don't you know who God is, Anne?" Anne answered promptly, as though reciting a lesson learned long ago and half beloved for the sound of it. "God is a spirit, infinite, eternal, and unchangeable in his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth." Marilla breathed a little easier. "So you do know something then, thank goodness. You're not quite a heathen. Where did you learn that?" "Oh, at the asylum Sunday school. They made us learn the whole catechism. I liked it pretty well. There's something splendid about some of the words. Infinite, eternal, and unchangeable. Isn't that grand? It has such a roll to it, just like a big organ playing. You couldn't quite call it poetry, I suppose, but it sounds a lot like it, doesn't it?" "We're not talking about poetry, Anne. We are talking about saying your prayers. Don't you know it's a terrible, wicked thing not to say your prayers every night? I'm afraid you are a very bad little girl." Anne's face took on a look of gentle reproach. "You'd find it easier to be bad than good if you had red hair. People who haven't red hair don't know what trouble is. Mrs. Thomas told me that God made my hair red on purpose, and I've never cared about him since. And anyhow, I'd always be too tired at night to bother saying prayers. People who have to look after twins can't be expected to say their prayers. Now, do you honestly think they can?" Marilla decided then that Anne's religious training must begin at once. "You must say your prayers while you are under my roof, Anne." Anne brightened into cheerful obedience. "Why, of course, if you want me to, I'd do anything to oblige you, but you'll have to tell me what to say for this once. After I get into bed, I'll imagine out a real nice prayer to say always. I believe that it will be quite interesting, now that I come to think of it." You must kneel down, said Marilla, with a little embarrassed hesitation. Anne knelt at Marilla's knee and looked up gravely. Why must people kneel down to pray? If I really wanted to pray, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd go out into a great big field all alone or into the deep, deep woods, and I'd look up into the sky. Up, 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 into that lovely blue sky that looks as if there was no end to its blueness. And then I'd just feel a prayer. Well, I'm ready. What am I to say? Marilla had meant to teach Anne the simple little childhood prayer, the one about laying down to sleep. But something stopped her. That prayer belonged to a different kind of child, a soft, white-robed little creature lisping at a mother's knee. This freckled girl, with her strange fancies and her hungry heart, knew and cared nothing about God's love, for she had never felt it through any human tenderness. So Marilla said, "You're old enough to pray for yourself, Anne. Just thank God for your blessings and ask him humbly for the things you want." "Well, I'll do my best," promised Anne, and she buried her face in Marilla's lap. Then she lifted her head for just a moment. "Gracious Heavenly Father," that's the way the ministers say it in church, so I suppose it's all right in private prayer, isn't it? And without waiting for an answer, she went on. "Gracious Heavenly Father, I thank thee for the white way of delight and the lake of shining waters and Bonnie and the Snow Queen. I'm really extremely grateful for them. And that's all the blessings I can think of just now to thank thee for. As for the things I want, they're so numerous that it would take a great deal of time to name them all, so I will only mention the two most important. Please let me stay at Green Gables, and please let me be good-looking when I grow up. I remain, yours respectfully, Anne Shirley." She scrambled to her feet, eager and a little proud. "There, did I do all right? I could have made it much more flowery if I'd had a little more time to think it over." Marilla felt a strange mixture of horror and something almost like pity. In this pause, let your shoulders sink into the softness beneath you, your jaw unclench, your hands rest open and heavy. There is nothing to hold. Gently now, back. She knew it was not irreverence, only a deep spiritual ignorance. She tucked the child into bed and made a silent promise to teach her a proper prayer the very next day. She was almost out the door, carrying the candle, when Anne's voice floated after her. "I've just thought of it now. I should have said Amen in place of yours respectfully, shouldn't I? The way the ministers do. I'd forgotten it, but I felt a prayer should be finished off in some way, so I put in the other. Do you suppose it will make any difference?" I don't suppose it will," said Marilla. "Go to sleep now like a good child. Good night." "I can say good night tonight with a clear conscience," said Anne, cuddling down among her pillows with a deep, happy sigh. Marilla retreated to the kitchen, set the candle firmly on the table, and looked at Matthew with shining, troubled eyes. "Matthew Cuthbert, it's about time somebody adopted that child and taught her something. She's next door to a perfect heathen. Will you believe that she never said a prayer in her life till tonight? I'll send to the manse tomorrow and borrow the Peep of the Day series. That's what I'll do. And she shall go to Sunday school just as soon as I can get some suitable clothes made for her. I foresee that I shall have my hands full. Well, we can't get through this world without our share of trouble. I've had a pretty easy life of it so far, but my time has come at last, and I suppose I'll just have to make the best of it." The next morning passed quietly, with Marilla keeping a keen eye on Anne as she went about her tasks. The child was quick and willing, her fingers busy while her mind wandered often into its own bright country. But when the dinner dishes were washed and dried, Anne suddenly appeared before Marilla, her small body trembling, her face flushed, and her gray eyes wide with desperate waiting. "Oh, please, Miss Cuthbert, won't you tell me if you are going to send me away or not? I've tried to be patient all the morning, but I really feel that I cannot bear not knowing any longer. It's a dreadful feeling. Please tell me." Marilla looked at her calmly. "You haven't scalded the dishcloth in clean, hot water, as I told you to do. Just go and do it before you ask any more questions, Anne." So Anne went and attended to the dishcloth, her heart beating fast all the while. When she came back, she fastened her imploring eyes on Marilla's face. "Well," said Marilla, and there was a softness underneath her sternness, "I suppose I might as well tell you. Matthew and I have decided to keep you, that is, if you will try to be a good little girl and show yourself grateful. Why, child, whatever is the matter?" "I'm crying," said Anne in a tone of bewilderment. "I can't think why. I'm glad as glad can be. Oh, glad doesn't seem the right word at all. I was glad about the white way and the cherry blossoms. But this, oh, it's something more than glad. I'm so happy. I'll try to be so good. It will be uphill work, I expect, for Mrs. Thomas often told me I was desperately wicked. However, I'll do my very best. But can you tell me why I'm crying?" "I suppose it's because you're all excited and worked up," said Marilla, though her voice was gentler than before. "Sit down on that chair and try to calm yourself. I'm afraid you both cry and laugh far too easily. Yes, you can stay here and we will try to do right by you. You must go to school, but it's only a fortnight till vacation, so it isn't worthwhile for you to start before it opens again in September." Then Anne wanted to know what she should call her. "Shall I always say Miss Cuthbert? Can I call you Aunt Marilla?" "No, you'll call me just plain Marilla. I'm not used to being called Miss Cuthbert, and it would make me nervous." "It sounds awfully disrespectful to just say Marilla," protested Anne. "I guess there'll be nothing disrespectful in it if you're careful to speak respectfully. Everybody, young and old, in Avonlea calls me Marilla except the minister. He says Miss Cuthbert when he thinks of it." "I'd love to call you Aunt Marilla," said Anne wistfully. "I've never had an aunt or any relation at all, not even a grandmother. It would make me feel as if I really belonged to you. Can't I call you Aunt Marilla?" "No, I'm not your aunt, and I don't believe in calling people names that don't belong to them." "But we could imagine you were my aunt." "I couldn't," said Marilla grimly. "Do you never imagine things different from what they really are?" asked Anne, wide-eyed. "No." "Oh," Anne drew a long breath. "Oh, Miss Marilla, how much you miss." "I don't believe in imagining things different from what they really are," retorted Marilla. "When the Lord puts us in certain circumstances, He doesn't mean for us to imagine them away. And that reminds me. Go into the sitting room, Anne, be sure your feet are clean and don't let any flies in, and bring me out the illustrated card that's on the mantelpiece. The Lord's Prayer is on it, and you'll devote your spare time this afternoon to learning it off by heart. There's to be no more of such praying, as I heard last night." "I suppose I was very awkward," said Anne apologetically. "But then, you see, I'd never had any practice. You couldn't really expect a person to pray very well the first time she tried, could you? I thought out a splendid prayer after I went to bed, just as I promised you I would. It was nearly as long as a minister's and so poetical. But would you believe it? I couldn't remember one. In this quiet pause, picture a soft evening meadow where the light fades slowly over still grass. Let your eyelids grow heavy, resting now like the sleeping hills. Gently now, back to the story. One word when I woke up this morning. And I'm afraid I'll never be able to think out another one as good. Somehow, things never are so good when they're thought out a second time. Have you ever noticed that? Here is something for you to notice, Anne. When I tell you to do a thing, I want you to obey me at once and not stand stock still and discourse about it. Just you go and do as I bid you." So Anne departed for the sitting room across the hall. Minutes passed, and she did not return. Marilla waited, then laid down her knitting and marched after her with a grim expression. She found Anne standing motionless before a picture hanging on the wall between the two windows. The white and green light, strained through apple trees and clustering vines outside, fell over the little figure with a half-unearthly radiance. Anne's eyes were full of dreams. "Anne, whatever are you thinking of?" demanded Marilla sharply. Anne started and came back to earth. "That," she said, pointing to the picture, a rather vivid chromo entitled "Christ Blessing Little Children." "And I was just imagining I would notice her, accept him. I'm sure I know just how she felt. Her heart must have beat and her hands must have got cold, like mine did when I asked you if I could stay. She was afraid he mightn't notice her. But it's likely he did, don't you think? I've been trying to imagine it all out, her edging a little nearer all the time until she was quite close to him. And then he would look at her and put his hand on her hair, and oh, such a thrill of joy as would run over her. Have looked so sad, or the children would have been afraid of him. "Anne," said Marilla, "you shouldn't talk that way. It's irreverent, positively irreverent." Anne's eyes marveled. "Why, I felt just as reverent as could be. I'm sure I didn't mean to be irreverent." "Well, I don't suppose you did, but it doesn't sound right to talk so familiarly about such things. And another thing, Anne, when I send you after something you're to bring it at once and not fall into mooning and imagining before pictures. Remember that. Take that card and come right to the kitchen. Now, sit down in the corner and learn that prayer off by heart." Anne set the card up against a jug full of apple blossoms she had brought in to decorate the dinner table. Marilla had eyed that decoration askance, but had said nothing, propped her chin on her hands, and fell to studying it intently for several silent minutes. "I like this," she announced at length. "It's beautiful. I've heard it before. I heard the superintendent of the Asylum Sunday School say it over once, but I didn't like it then. He had such a cracked voice and he prayed it so mournfully. I really felt sure he thought praying was a disagreeable duty. This isn't poetry, but it makes me feel just the same way poetry does. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That is just like a line of music." "Oh, I'm so glad you thought of making me learn this, Miss Marilla." "Well, learn it and hold your tongue," said Marilla shortly. But Anne tipped the vase of apple blossoms near enough to bestow a soft kiss on a pink-cupped bud, and then studied diligently for some moments longer. Presently she looked up with a new thought. "Marilla, do you think that I shall ever have a bosom friend in Avonlea?" "Say, what kind of friend?" "A bosom friend, an intimate friend, you know, a really kindred spirit to whom I can confide my inmost soul. I've dreamed of meeting her all my life. I never really supposed I would, but so many of my loveliest dreams have come true all at once that perhaps this one will, too. Do you think it's possible? Diana Barry lives over at Orchard Slope, and she's about your age. She's a very nice little girl, and perhaps she will be a playmate for you when she comes home. She's visiting her aunt over at Carmody just now. You'll have to be careful how you behave yourself, though. Mrs. Barry is a very particular woman. She won't let Diana play with any little girl who isn't nice and good." Anne looked at Marilla through the apple blossoms, her eyes aglow with interest. "What is Diana like? Her hair isn't red, is it? Oh, I hope not. It's bad enough to have red hair myself, but I positively couldn't endure it in a bosom friend. Diana is a very pretty little girl. She has black eyes and hair and rosy cheeks. And she is good and smart, which is better than being pretty. But Anne waved the moral aside and seized only on the lovely possibilities. Oh, I'm so glad she's pretty. Next to being beautiful oneself, and that's impossible in my case, it would be best to have a beautiful bosom friend. When I lived with Mrs. Thomas, she had a bookcase in her sitting room with glass doors. There weren't any books in it. Mrs. Thomas kept her best china and her preserves there, when she had any preserves to keep. One of the doors was broken. Mr. Thomas smashed it one night when he was slightly intoxicated. But the other was whole, and I used to pretend that In this pause, let the tide of the story carry you a little further out, where each word becomes a soft wave pulling you toward a deeper, quieter shore. Gently now, back to the story. Reflection in it was while the soft afternoon light settled around her like a quiet blessing. And so, dear listener, the tale settles like a quiet tide returning to the shore. As you lay your head down now, let its gentle images drift with you, each breath smoothing the day's rough edges. May your mind find the soft shelter of sleep, your body a feather's weight upon the pillow, and your dreams a warm, unhurried river. Should this voice offer you comfort, I invite you to share it with someone else who longs for rest. A friend, a loved one, a stranger in the dark. Until we meet again, be kind to yourself and let sleep hold you close. Good night.